afternoon and talk about some different parts of communication and how those separate parts, when done well, can really help conversation to be done efficiently and effectively, and um, just prevent a lot of miscommunication on either end. So to start, um, there's obviously two people, the person talking and the person listening, and each of them have two different parts or roles that they can play in the communication. I think a good starting point is that for the person who is doing the talking, to first understand kind of the why, the big picture reason for having the discussion. And every time we talk to someone, we have a reason for it, right? Even if you're picking up your phone to talk to a friend, you have something when talk to them about. There's a reason for that. Or if someone did something that upset you, well, there's a reason that what they did upset you. And while it can be helpful to talk about the specific thing that happened, a large part of the conversation is being missed if you don't try and identify what about that guy you upset. So identify that big picture why. Then the second part is to package that in a way the other person is most likely to hear it or understand it. So, and that's not saying to be kind of two-faced or not genuine, but the way that we talk to our friends is different than the way we talk to a partner or our parents or a boss at work or our kids. We say things in different ways so that different people can understand them well. Same thing that once you identify that big picture underlying value, take that and figure out how's the other person going to understand this the absolute best way possible. And that's not to say it's going to be perfect, but it's going to give you the best chance of clearly communicating the important parts of what's going on. For the listener, there's also two parts. The first one, and it's probably much easier said than done, is to set aside the emotional component, the emotional reaction to what the other person's saying. Now, I'll get to why that's important in a minute. But then the second part is to listen to understand what the other person is saying. And I think a reason that's important is we all interpret what someone's saying through our own lenses as well. So we want to make sure that we're not just hearing things how we hear them, but that we're hearing them in a way that we're actually hearing the big picture that the other person's trying to say. So the reason it's important to set aside your initial emotional reaction. I mean, how many times have you been talking with a friend of yours and they say something that just really strikes you the wrong way, so you're really pissed off about it, right? Only until they keep talking, you realize that what you thought they said they didn't actually say or they didn't actually mean. Well, if you just jumped in and started going after them for what you thought they said, well, that whole conversation is going to blow up, right? Whereas instead, if you take that moment and listen to what they're saying, and then try and clarify and make sure you actually get what they're saying, well, you might find out there's nothing to be upset about. You might actually agree with them. So take those couple moments, set that emotional reaction aside until the other person's done talking. Reflect back what you heard them say. Make sure you're both understanding the same thing. And then go from there. Sometimes when there's really difficult conversation, I'm getting this from John Gottman. He studies a lot of relationships. A pattern that we can use is when I feel I need. So when, just a brief context, here's what was going on, why I need to have this conversation with you. Then I feel, like I mentioned before, what's that underlying value? How did that impact you? To the point that it's worth having this conversation. But then to not get stuck there, but to transition into I need. So all of this happened, here's how it impacted me. I need this for the relationship to move forward, or for me to feel safe, what have you. So with a 10,000-foot view, kind of tying all of that together, parts of effective communication is knowing what you have to say and why, communicating that in a way the other person's going to hear. If you look at the video from Tuesday when I talked about extreme ownership, saying things in terms of us taking ownership for what happened. So sake of argument, yesterday when someone parked in my parking spot, I'm just using that as an example, it impacted me because now everything I'm carrying, it's going to be a longer walk, what have you. Massive inconvenience. But here's why I'm packaging that in a way the other person is going to get it. As a person hearing, to take a step back and really not just want to defend yourself, but listen, hey, did I actually have a role in that? Is there something I can do different going forward? And am I actually understanding what the other person's trying to tell me? And talk about that. And then look for a resolution. Don't get stuck on, okay, I get what they're saying. Well, fantastic. And that's necessary, but how are you going to use that to move things forward? You get what they're saying. You both agree that you know what the other person is saying. And now try and problem solve. How can you both maybe make an adjustment to move things forward from there? And I think that's a wonderful and pretty simple pattern to communicate and to work through conflict. So to quickly summarize that, it's the 4 parts of communication: understanding what you need to say and why, packaging it in a way the other person is going to hear it for the listener, setting aside your immediate emotional reaction, and making sure you're clarifying what the other person's saying so you're both on the same page. And a format for that communication can be, when something happens, I feel a reaction, and so I need such and such from that.